Shahrokh. I think that's probably everybody. Well, I want to welcome everybody to this second session on the Lawh-i-Sultán by Shahrokh Monjazeb. Last time, Shahrokh was able to cover the first 10 or 12 paragraphs of the Lawh-i-Sultán. And of course, he gave the background of the tablet when it was revealed and mentioned briefly that this is the tablet that Bahai took to Násiri'd-Dín Sháh. Today, he will move on forward and cover, well, we'll see how many paragraphs. We don't know yet. And then we have another broadcast scheduled. Now we've moved it to April 8th at, I believe, what time did we say? 4 p.m. Eastern time, which of course we'll confirm to everybody later. And then possibly we'll even do a fourth one if we need to on Sunday the 15th. So I'll turn it over to Shahrokh. Take it away, Shahrokh.
Good day, friends. First of all, I want to wish you a good fast here. This is the month of Allah, the month of fasting, and this would be a good time to start. So last time, as Dr. Robert Stockman mentioned, we covered up to about paragraph 8, 9. And here we're just going to dive right in. Paragraphs 11 and 12, Baha'u'lláh refutes some key accusations leveled against him by his detractors. He writes, amongst the people are those who allege that this youth hath had no purpose but to perpetuate his name, whilst others claim that he hath sought for himself the vanities of the world. This notwithstanding that never throughout all my days have I found a place of safety, be it to the extent of a single foothold. At all times have I been immersed in an ocean of tribulations, whose full measure none can fathom but God. He truly is aware of what I say. Now, just a quick note here. Obviously, we know that Baha'u'lláh, for the first 27 years of his life, enjoyed a life of, as the Guardian Shoghi Effendi refers to it, carefree and life of opulence based on his family. His family was quite wealthy. But here where Baha'u'lláh is talking about that that nowhere during the days of, in all my days, have I found a place of safety, be it to the extent of a single foothold. This is obviously from the time of the revelation, of the new revelation. And that's really, you know, he is more emphasizing, he's focusing that this is the part of his life, that who he is and his reality, the reality of the Bab and reality of himself are the same. This is echoed throughout his writings, and Shoghi Effendi has commented on this in his dispensation of Baha'u'lláh. So really what Baha'u'lláh is saying, that, you know, since the dawn of the new revelation, it's been very hard, and it's really it's been very tumultuous, and constantly he has been under the threat of persecution, and that has been the case. So he continues, how many the days in which my loved ones have been sorely shaken by reason of my afflictions, and how many the nights during which my kindred, fearing for my life, have bitterly wept and lamented. And this none can deny save them that are bereft of truthfulness. Is it conceivable? Then he asked this question, is it conceivable that he who expects to lose his life at any moment should seek after worldly vanities? That's a beautiful question that really makes this very clear. How can I be looking for worldly things when, you know, what I was fearing for was my life every time, you know? So how very strange, he continues, the imaginings of those who speak as prompted by their own caprices or capricious. and who wander distractedly in the wilderness of self and passion. Ere long shall they be called upon to account for their words, and on that day they shall find none to be friend or help them. And amongst the people are those who claim that he hath disbelieved in God, yet every member of my body testifies that there is none other God but him, that those whom he hath raised up in truth and sent forth with his guidance are the manifestations of his most excellent names, the revealers of his most exalted attributes, and the repositories of his revelation in the kingdom of creation. That through them the proof of God hath been perfected unto all else but him. The standard of divine unity hath been raised, and the sign of sanctity hath been made manifest. It's not the first time that Baha'u'lláh has been accused of not believing in God, and many of you know that the accusation leveled against him by Sheikh Muhammad Taqi Najafi, the son of the wolf, where Baha'u'lláh rebuttals beautifully in the epistle to the son of the wolf about joining partners with God and the unity of God. So definitely these were particularly the religious doctors always claimed that, as heretics, as the Babis and Baha'is were to them, that they really didn't believe in God, that they had this other God, they had this other faith that was so different than Islam, which obviously is false and not true. And here you'll see that Baha'u'lláh uses the tradition of the Semitic traditions, as well as quotes from the Quran and from the holy traditions of Islam, to show that his actions, his teachings are very much in accordance and congruent to the teachings enunciated in the previous revelation, yet there is more to offer here. We testify, he goes on, that there is none other God but him, that from everlasting he was alone, with none else besides him. Again, he is speaking of the unity of God, and that he shall be unto everlasting what he hath ever been. Too high is the All-Merciful for the hearts of those who have recognized him to apprehend his true nature, or for the minds of men to hope to fathom his essence. He verily is exalted above the understanding of anyone besides himself, and sanctified beyond the comprehension of all else save him. From all eternity he hath been independent of the entire creation. So here's another confessional statement about the unity of God that Baha'u'lláh delivers, this type of a pronouncement that leaves it unmistakable that he is indeed the believer and promoter of the unity of God. Now in paragraph 13, Baha'u'lláh expatiates on the trials and tribulations that plagued Prophet Muhammad once he began proclaiming God's revelation. He recounts especially how the divine message was presented to the king of Ethiopia, the Negus al-Asham ibn Abjar. Asham ibn Abjar was the Negus, or as the Muslims believe, refer to as Najashi in Persian. It's a title, essentially, like the emperor that the Ethiopians used to refer to their king. So Al-Asham ibn Abjar was that king that Muhammad proclaimed to. Here, Baha'u'lláh writes, remember the days in which the sun of Baha shone forth above the horizon of the will of thy Lord, the exalted, the Most High, and recall how the divines of that age turned away from him, and the learned contented with him, that happily thou mayst apprehend that which in this day remains concealed behind the veils of glory. So Baha'u'lláh says he's showing the king that history is repeating itself, that there is a parallel here, and he's using a well-known Islamic tradition that the king is very much aware of, who was raised with it, and says, look at this. Isn't this the same? That what's happening here? So grievous became his plight of Prophet Muhammad on every side, that he instructed his companions to disperse. This is which eventually led to the migration of Prophet Muhammad from Mecca to Medina due to the persecutions of the Meccans, and his hijrah to Medina. Many were also sent to the other adjoining lands. Some were sent to Ethiopia. Thus was the decree sent down from the heaven of divine glory. Remember, furthermore, Baha'u'lláh continues, how when one of these same companions came before the king of Ethiopia and recited unto him a surah of the Quran, he declared to his attendants. This is again the response of the Negus, and Baha'u'lláh quotes the statement of the Negus, this truly hath been revealed by one who is all-knowing and all hath been recited. We verily bear witness to its truth, even as we bear witness the truth of that which we possess of the books of God, the help in peril, the self-subsisting. Now, I thought it would be very interesting to share with you Muhammad's proclamation, at least according to the Islamic tradition. The most prominent history of Islam is the history of Al-Tabari, which in the last several decades has been translated by scholars, by Western Islamic scholars, and it's about 32 volumes, very extensive, with a very reliable asnad that the history of Islam is generally based on. So so according to the history of Al-Tabari, the messenger of God sent Amr ibn Umayyah al-Damri to the Negus, to Najashi, concerning Ja'far ibn Abi Talib. Ja'far was the brother of Ali and the first cousin of Prophet Muhammad. And then this was the following letter to him to take. So, in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, from Muhammad, the messenger of God, to the Negus al-Asham, king of the Ethiopians. May you be at peace. I praise to you, God, the King, the most holy, the peace, the keeper of faith, the watcher, and I bear witness that Jesus, the Son of Mary, is the Spirit and Word of God, which he cast into the goodly and chaste Virgin Mary, so that she conceived Jesus, whom God created from his Spirit and breathed into him, even as he created Adam by his hand and breathed into him. I call you to God alone, who has no partner, to continue obedience to him, and that you follow me and believe in what has come to me, for I am the messenger of God. I have sent you my cousin Ja'far and a group of Muslims with him. When he comes to you, show them hospitality and do not oppress. For I call you and your armies to God. I have communicated sincere advice. Accept my advice. Peace be upon whoever follows right guidance. And this is from Al-Tabari's translation, volume 8, paragraphs 1569, which is on page 108. Now, in paragraph 14, Baha'u'lláh admonishes the Shah to hearken unto God's command and be the true defender of the faith. Because, as I mentioned to you, Násiri'd-Dín the title that the Shah of Iran had means the defender of the faith, the succorer of the faith, if you will. So, so here Baha'u'lláh, invites the king to be the true defender of the faith and not to allow his worldly wealth and pageantry to prevent him from achieving his ultimate destiny as purposed by God. Baha'u'lláh writes, I swear by God, O king, wert thou to incline thine ear to the melodies of that nightingale which warbleth in manifold accents upon the mystic bough, as bidden by thy Lord, the All-Merciful, thou wouldst cast away thy sovereignty and set thy face towards this scene of transcendent glory, this station above whose horizon shineth the book of the dawn tide, and wouldst expend all that thou possessest in thine eagerness to obtain the things of God. Then wouldst thou find thyself raised up to the summit of exaltation and glory, and elevated to the pinnacle of majesty and independence. Thus hath the decree been recorded in the mother book by the pen of the All-Merciful. Of what avail are the things which are yours today and which tomorrow others shall possess? This is a question that Baha'u'lláh has repeatedly enunciated in his writings, and here he pronounces this to the Shah of what avail are the things which are yours today and which tomorrow others shall possess. Choose for thyself that which God hath chosen for his elect, and God shall grant thee a mighty sovereignty in his kingdom. We beseech God to aid thy majesty to hearken unto that word whose radiance hath enveloped the whole world, and to protect thee from such as have strayed far from the court of his presence. There was an opportunity for Násiri'd-Dín Sháh to have a unique position, to embrace the cause that of his countrymen, namely Baha'u'lláh, and to be remembered in the annals of religious history as the king who, like the Negus of Ethiopia, that embraced the cause of Prophet Muhammad. Now, in the annals of Islam, the Negus will always be remembered, whereas no one else knows about any of the other Ethiopian king. He is singled out, and this was an opportunity that Násiri'd-Dín Sháh missed. Despite the fact that he had the peacock throat, he had all sorts of wealth and diamonds, the second largest diamond, the Sea of Light, Darya-i Nur, was part of the crown jewels of Iran. And again, this is here it's very regrettable, but here Baha'u'lláh is admonishing him and exhorting him that you have an opportunity here, seize the opportunity. But obviously Násiri'd-Dín Shah's arrogance and his ego did not allow him to win this crown of glory for himself. In paragraph 15 through 20, Baha'u'lláh prayerfully communes and supplicates with God that he may grant the king the spiritual insights to embrace God's will and purpose for him. You will see throughout the Lawh-i-Sultán many times, at least 3 or 4 times, that Baha'u'lláh reveals these very moving prayers in honor of the Shah and on behalf of the Shah, for supplication to God that he may be guided aright. And yet, unfortunately, it fell on deaf ears by the Shah, and he did not win that glory that he could have. Assist thou, this is an excerpt from paragraph 20. Assist thou, O my God, His Majesty the Shah, to keep thy statutes amidst thy servants, and to manifest thy justice amongst thy creatures, that he may treat this people as he treateth others. Thou art in truth the God of power, of glory, and wisdom. So that is the end of part one that I didn't get to finish last time. So we're now going to switch over to the, just going to exit here, and we're going to move to the next few paragraphs, paragraph 21 to 46. Hopefully we can cover this during this webinar. So in paragraph 21 to 23, Baha'u'lláh recounts for the Shah some of the turbulent events of his exile in Ottoman Iraq. He writes, by the leave and permission of the king of the age, excuse me, this servant journeyed from the seat of sovereignty to Iraq. Now, and Baha'u'lláh shows so much courtesy and so much respect towards the who has been instrument for persecution, for his exile. It was the Shah of Iran that exiled him out of his country. But here Baha'u'lláh shows great deference towards the king. And so he says, by the leave and permission of the king of the age, this servant journeyed from the seat of sovereignty, being Tehran, to Iraq, and dwelt for 12 years in that land. Throughout the entire course of this period, no account of our condition was submitted to the court of thy presence, and no representation ever made to foreign powers. So basically he says that, you know, we left you alone. We did not complain. We just, you know, did what we wanted to do, and we kept to ourselves, essentially. He says, placing our whole trust in God, we resided in that land until there came to Iraq a certain official. And this is a reference to Mirza Buzurg Khan Ghazvini, who upon his arrival undertook to harass this poor company of exiles. Now, there is a special reference to this individual, Mirza Buzurg Khan Ghazvini, in paragraphs 103 to 104 of the Surah Muluk. I spoke about this and recounted his machinations along with Sheikh al-Araghain, also in my webinar on the tablet of Shakar Shakan, which is now posted by Wilmette Institute, you know, on YouTube, that you can go and look at that if you haven't seen it. And there's some more detailed information about the nature, the circumstances. And this was towards the end of Baha'u'llah's sojourn in Baghdad. He was appointed as the representative, the envoy of the Iranian government in Baghdad by around late 1860s. Sorry, 1860, and he was there for a couple of years. So while addressing the Persian ambassador to the Ottoman court in Istanbul, Mirza Hossein Khan Moshir-ud-Dawleh, Baha'u'llah details the malevolent and corrupt character of this Persian envoy to Baghdad. As you know, Baha'u'llah extensively addresses Mirza Hossein Khan. He is the only Persian official that he is addressed directly by Baha'u'llah in Surah Al-Muluk. And he essentially represented the government of Iran at the Sublime Porte. So this is what you may want to go back and look at this paragraph 103 and 104 in the Surah Muluk. It will really shed light on the reference that Baha'u'llah makes here. In fact, it's a lot more detail there, yet Baha'u'llah gives a summary of it. He says, day after day, at the instigation of some of the outwardly learned. And he doesn't mention Sheikh al-Araghain, but Sheikh Abdul Hussein al-Tehrani was the clerical liaison, if you will, to the government of Iran in Baghdad. In fact, historians have said that he was such a troublemaker that the Shah wanted to remove him and give him a task to do, to send him away. So he sent Sheikh al-Araghain to the Atabat, to the Shia realms of pilgrimage, because, as you know, in the Iraq are buried several of the Shia holy imams, and particularly Imam Hussein, the shrine of Imam Hussein and Imam Ali are in Najaf and Karbala. And the Shah had tasked Sheikh al-Araghain with the gilding of the dome of these shrines. And so he was there on, on behalf or on the instruction of the Shah. Even though Baha'u'lláh doesn't make mention of him directly, he was one of the authorities that the Shah had sent. So Baha'u'lláh recounts here, says, day after day, at the instigation of some of the outwardly learned, he was the chief instigator of Mirza Buzurg Khan. So they colluded together and became a real thorn on the side of the Baha'is and the Baha'u'lláh and his companions in Baghdad. And also Baha'u'lláh says, and of other individuals, he would stir up trouble for these servants, although they had at no time committed any act detrimental to the state and its people or contrary to the rules and customs of the citizens of the realm. Mr. Balyuzi in Baha'u'lláh, King of Glory, does describe in detail the machinations of these two individuals and how it brought so much grief to Baha'u'lláh and his companions. It became such that it was unbearable, and you will see Baha'u'lláh says at the end that they had no choice but to apply for citizenship of the Ottoman citizenship in order to avail themselves of the troubles that these so-called countrymen of theirs were causing for them, in Baghdad. Fearing lest the actions of these transgressors, here Baha'u'lláh goes on, should produce some outcome at variance with thy world-adorning judgment, this servant dispatched a brief account of the matters to Mirza Said Khan at the foreign ministry. Now, the foreign minister of Iran was Mirza Said Khan. He was an example of a venal politician. He was absolutely useless. And for many years, he held that post. And later on, after him, they discovered that these dispatches and letters and not just here Baha'u'llah's, but many communications that was sent to him by their ambassadors in various lands, foreign lands, to him, had remained unopened and unread, and no action had been done regarding any of those things. So you could see that this individual, that Baha'u'lláh says that we wrote an account of these matters and send it to essentially your foreign minister, so that he might submit it to the royal presence, and that whatever thou shouldst please to decree in this respect might be obeyed. A long while elapsed, Baha'u'lláh continues, and no decree was issued. Finally, matters came to such a pass. So Baha'u'lláh said, at first we tried to contact you guys to let them know of the actions of these individuals, and the harm that they were causing us. And since we didn't hear from you, we had no other choice but to go to the Ottoman authorities. And it was suggested by the Ottomans that if they changed their citizenship, then they could come under the protection of the Ottoman Empire. And so Baha'u'lláh ordered his companions and also himself to become Ottoman citizens. So finally matters came to such a pass that there loomed the threat of imminent strife and bloodshed, of necessity, therefore, and for the protection of the servants of God, a few of them appealed to the governor of Iraq. And here, the footnote that we have also refers that Baha'u'lláh here refers to his and his companions' application for the Ottoman citizenship. In paragraph 23, Baha'u'lláh avers that since his arrival in Iraq, he had taught peace and nonviolence amongst his followers. Now, this also is a clue in which, as we will see, that Baha'u'lláh, particularly as his revelation emerged out of concealment. In fact, the very first commandment that he, according to him, revealed at the Garden of Rizwan, on the first day of his open private declaration in the Garden of Najibiyah, was that he abolished holy war, jihad, and the rule of the sword, as he says. So here Baha'u'lláh says that when he came to Baghdad in 1853, from the onset of it, he promoted amongst the Baha'i community nonviolence, and this is evidenced, and Shoghi Effendi has a beautiful commentary on this and analysis in God Passes By about how Baha'u'llah's actions were transformative in the character of the Baha'i community in Baghdad, that they went from a notorious group to being exalted in the eyes of everyone, and to have the reputation of being the best of people. And this was solely through the actions of Baha'u'lláh. So he says this evanescent soul, however, has, since his arrival in Iraq, forbidden all to engage in dissension and strife. The witness of this servant is his very deeds. He says, my actions are my witness. For all are well aware and will testify that although a greater number of this people resided in Iraq than in any other land, no one overstepped his limits or transgressed against his neighbor. Fixing their gaze upon God and reposing their trust in him, all have now been abiding in peace for well nigh 15 years. And in whatever hath befallen them, they have shown forth patience and resigned themselves to God. So here Baha'u'lláh says in 15 years, now that he is in Adrianople, he says this is continuing on, that this peaceful action by his followers and non-violence and non-retaliatory practices that was taught by Baha'u'lláh and became an injunction to his followers. In paragraph 24, besides making a timeline reference that puts the revelation of the Lawh-i-Sultán definitively in the city of Edirne, Baha'u'lláh expounds on the meaning of the term rendering assistance unto God by quoting a lengthy excerpt from one of his previously revealed works. This long extract begins at paragraph 25 and continues to the end of paragraph 29. In paragraphs 27 and 28, however, of this commentary on the meaning of rendering assistance unto God, Baha'u'lláh delineates perhaps one of the most significant statements of his revelation on the principle of nonviolence. And I have mentioned this in some of my past presentation. In fact, I presented a presentation at the ABS conference, not a paper yet, hopefully it will be soon, on Baha'u'llah's early teachings on nonviolence and anti-jihad commandments that followed and really blossomed here and in this statement by Baha'u'lláh. And I will read you the original in Farsi and in Arabic. Baha'u'lláh writes, هر نفسی که اراده نصرت نماید باید اول به سیف معانی و بیان مدینه قلب خود را تصرف نماید و از ذکر ما سوی الله محفوظ دارد و بعد به مدائن قلوب توجه کند. So the authorized English translation is, whoso seeketh to assist God must, before all else, conquer with the sword of inner meaning and explanation the city of his own heart and guard it from the remembrance of all save God, and only then set out to subdue the cities of the hearts of others. He goes on to say in the original language, این است مقصود از نصرت، ابداً فساد محبوب حق نبوده و نیست و آنچه از قبل از جهال ارتکاب نموده اند ابداً مرضی نبوده. ان تقتلوا فی رداه لخیر لکم من ان تقتلوا. الیوم باید احبای الهی به شأنی در ما بین عباد ظاهر شوند که جمیع را به افعال خود به رضوان ذوالجلال هدایت نمایند. Baha'u'lláh continues, says, such is the true meaning of rendering assistance unto God. Sedition hath never been pleasing unto God, nor were the acts committed in the past by certain foolish ones acceptable in his sight. Know ye that to be killed in the path of his good pleasure is better for you than to kill. This is that famous statement of Baha'u'lláh that is better to be killed than to kill. The beloved of the Lord must in this day behave in such wise amidst his servants that they may by their very deeds and actions guide all men unto the paradise of the all-glorious. Baha'u'lláh had in previous revelations, his compositions, starting with Baghdad period, and I have given a timeline in my presentation that started with the tablets of Shakar Shakan, where Baha'u'lláh teaches to be peaceful, to submit to the will of God, to be radiant, to exercise radiant acquiescence. Then by the early Adrianople period, about 1864, 1865, particularly around 1865, with the revelation of Surah Al-Ashab, the Surah of the Companions, where he for the first time to his own companions and his loved ones, he announces the fact that that violence is not acceptable in the sight of God, and that that they must not take life or shed blood. And then we also see it in Surah Al-Haykal, the tablet that has been put as the exordium of these letters to the kings, the Surah of the Temple. If you look at it, there is a pronouncement in there where Baha'u'lláh explicitly states that the rule of the sword and shedding of the blood has been unequivocally forbidden. And you know, Surah Haykal was largely revealed for the Babis, and so it was his proclamatory, his very first proclamation to the Babis, and it may have taken place prior or soon after the revelation of Surah Al-Muluk. So again, you know, sometime around 1866 to 1867. Here in the first quarter of 1868, Baha'u'lláh takes it to the next level. He says that now, you know, not only that you are not to shed anybody's blood, not to kill, not to retaliate, but it's even better to be sacrificial, that if someone wants to kill you, that you put down your life in the path of God. So now it is in the path of God that he's talking about, that you know, again, this is in a way glorifies the martyrs and the martyrdoms, people who were, so here is 1868, and then you have the martyrdom of, for example, the king and the beloved of the martyrs in 1879, about 10 years later, and many of the other martyrdoms that were to follow. And they were martyrs prior to this, but you know, people who could have risen, who had the wealth and position to retaliate and to take vengeance, or to defend themselves in such wise, you know, when it came to the affairs of the faith. So Baha'u'lláh says, when it comes to the affairs of the faith, it is better to be killed than to kill, as he says, in the path of his good pleasure. So again, it's in the path of God. It is better for you than to kill. The beloved of the Lord must, in this day, behave in such wise amidst his servants, that they may by their very deeds and actions guide all men unto the paradise of the all-glorious. So you have seen this in the teachings of later, the commentaries of Abdul Baha and Shoghi Effendi, that, you know, it is through actions, through deeds, and through living the life. This expression that, you know, it's now very prevalent in the Baha'i faith about living the Baha'i life, living the life, are essentially, the origin of it comes from such statements as this, that Baha'u'lláh has now created a new paradigm. This is unprecedented in the annals of religious history. You've never had any manifestations of God declare that it is better to be killed in the path of good pleasure of God than to kill. So this is monumental. And I believe Baha'u'lláh chose to enunciate this very exalted and unique principle in the Lawh-i-Sultán as the epistle, the most important epistle to the king of his native land, to show that the Baha'is are indeed not only, you know, peaceful and peacemakers, they are not violent, and they would be willing to lay down their lives, as we have seen in the annals of the Baha'i faith, and we still see that in Iran. This is the commandment by which the Baha'is in Iran are conducting themselves today. And the martyrs that we have seen after the Iranian Revolution, who have laid down their lives. So this is very important and worth reflecting and exploring. In paragraph 31, Baha'u'lláh continues the account of his exile as he is summoned by the Ottoman Sublime Porte to move his residence from Baghdad to Istanbul. So Baha'u'lláh goes on to say, later the servant was summoned to Constantinople, whither we arrived accompanied by a poor band of exiles. At no time thereafter did we seek to meet with anyone, as we had no request to make and no aim in view, but to demonstrate unto all that this servant had no mischief in mind and had never associated with the sowers of sedition. By him who hath caused the tongues of all beings to speak forth his praise, while certain considerations rendered it difficult to make application to any quarter, such steps were perforce taken to protect certain souls. My Lord verily knows what is in me, and he bears witness unto the truth of what I say. And again, this is a reference that Baha'u'lláh has made previously, that he has nothing to solicit, and this was rather the Ottomans took it rather as an insult that Baha'u'lláh didn't present himself to them or come begging for gifts. And again, this is explained both in God Passes By and Mr. Baliuzi's Baha'u'lláh King of Glory as well. In paragraph 32, Baha'u'lláh describes the true attributes and the exalted station of a just king. He writes, "A just king is the shadow of God on earth." This passage has been translated by Shobi Effendi. So this is the Guardian's translation, which has been quoted in the Promised Days Come as well. "A just king is the shadow of God on earth. All should seek shelter under the shadow of his justice and rest in the shade of his favor. This is not a matter which is either specific or limited in its scope, that it might be restricted to one or another person, inasmuch as the shadow telleth of the one who casteth it." I love this. This is, again, he says, you're the shadow of God on earth. In the same way that Baha'u'lláh referred to Sultan Abdul Aziz, he says, you're the Abdul Aziz. You are the servant of Aziz. He is the Aziz. He is the, as he begins, Huwa al-Aziz, the opening invocation of the Surah Al-Muluk. So here, Baha'u'lláh says, a just king, which you should be, is the shadow of God on earth. But you have to understand you're just a shadow of God, and that you are answerable to him. And you must remember that at all times. So here, this is not a matter which is either specific or limited in its scope, that it might be restricted to one or another person, as much as the shadow telleth of the one who casteth it. God, glorified be his remembrance, hath called himself the Lord of the worlds, for he hath nurtured and still nurtures everyone. Glorified be then his grace that hath preceded all created things, and his mercy that has surpassed the worlds. In paragraph 33 and 34, Baha'u'lláh examines brilliantly why his cause is the cause of truth and his faith is the continuation of God's true religion. He writes, "It is clear and evident that whether this cause be seen as right or wrong by the people, those who are associated with its name have accepted and embraced it as true, and have forsaken their all in their eagerness to partake of the things of God. That they should evince such renunciation in the path of the love of the All-Merciful is in itself a faithful witness and an eloquent testimony to the truth of their convictions. Hath it ever been witnessed that a man of sound judgment should sacrifice his life without cause or reason?" This is a beautiful statement by Baha'u'lláh, I believe very powerful, that is the ultimate proof. He says these people do this out of their own volition. They make these sacrifices, they lay down their lives, and they believe in this. And again, and there have been many prominent, clergies that rose, like Sayyid Yahya Darabi, Mirza Muhammad Ali Zanjani, Hujjat. These were, no small people. They were famous people, famous doctors of Shia Islam that rose and embraced the cause. There were many of them. And so Baha'u'lláh says, these people are, you can call one or two people crazy, but you can't call, everyone crazy who is, and these are people who are already very intelligent, who are already established, that have chosen to embrace this cause, and as a result suffer the consequence and its persecutions for it. He goes on to say, and if it be suggested that this people have taken leave of their senses, this too is highly improbable, inasmuch as such behavior hath not been confined to merely a soul or two. Nay, a vast multitude of every class have drunk their fill of the living waters of divine knowledge, and intoxicated have hastened with heart and soul to the field of sacrifice in the way of the beloved. Beautiful apostrophe here by the Blessed Beauty about the nature of faith of those who have embraced the cause of God. If these, he continues on and says, if these souls who have renounced all else but God for his sake and offered up their life and substance in his path are to be accounted as false, then by what proof and testimony can the truth of what others assert be established in thy presence? In paragraph 35, Baha'u'lláh expatiates on the continuous suffering of him and his followers for the past 20 years at the hands of the representatives of the government of Iran, at the hands of deputies and representatives of the Shah himself. For more than 20 years, this people have day and night been subjected to the fury of the sovereign's wrath and have been scattered by the tempestuous gales of his displeasure, each to a different land. How many the children who have been left fatherless, and how many the fathers who have lost their sons, how many the mothers who have dared not out of fear and dread to mourn their slaughtered offspring, how numerous those who at eventide were possessed of utmost wealth and affluence, and who, when morning came, had fallen into utter abasement and destitution. No land is there whose soil hath not been tinged with their blood, nor reach of heaven unto which their sighs have not ascended. Throughout the years, the darts of affliction have unceasingly rained down from the clouds of God's decree. Yet despite all these calamities and tribulations, the flame of divine love hath so blazed in their hearts that even should their bodies be torn asunder, they would not forsake their love of him who is the best beloved of the worlds, but would welcome with heart and soul whatever might befall them in the path of God. In paragraphs 36 through 38, Baha'u'lláh proposes a face-to-face meeting between him and the Shia clergies of Iran, who had been the inveterate enemies of the new faith since its inception in 1844. This, he suggests, in order to once and for all dispel the error of judgment made against him and his followers by these notorious religious doctors, the Shia clergies. He writes, would that the world adorning wish of his majesty might decree that this servant be brought face to face with the divines of the age and produce proofs and testimonies in the presence of his majesty, the Shah. This servant is ready and takes hope in God that such a gathering may be convened in order that the truth of the matter may be made clear and manifest before his majesty, the Shah. It is then for thee to command, and I stand ready before the throne of thy sovereignty. Decide then for me or against me. So Baha'u'lláh says, let's have a meeting. And you decide, you be the arbiter, you be the judge, and I will accept anything, any judgment you choose to pass. So this is quite a challenge to the Shah. And yet obviously he did not heed, or he did not want to. To corroborate his pronouncements, Baha'u'lláh writes, every claim requires a proof, not mere words and displays of outward piety. So he says it has to be, the essence of faith is fewness of words and abundance of deeds, as he later on makes that statement and pronouncement in the Asl Kull Khair, the words of wisdom. And goes on to quote in paragraph 39 to 43 several sections from his well-known work, The Hidden Words. And these are the sections from basically Hidden Words 24, 25, 28, and 30. We don't have time to really go into the details of them. They are there. You can read them, and perhaps you can. There could be a discussion about why Baha'u'lláh may have chosen these particular ones. As you know, there's about 81 in the Persian and roughly around 70 or so in the Arabic. So he chose this 4. But it would be worth exploring and reflecting on why these 4, and not other 4. In paragraph 44, Baha'u'lláh invites the king to practice a new paradigm of judiciousness based on the teachings of the Quran and the holy traditions of Islam. He writes, therefore, in the exercise of the royal justice, it is not sufficient to give ear to the claimant alone. God saith in the Quran, the unerring balance that distinguishes truth from falsehood, O ye who believe, if a wicked man come to you with news, clear it up at once, lest through ignorance ye harm others, and afterward repent of what ye have done. So again, Baha'u'lláh now quoting the Quran, the authority of the Quran, which is absolute, and is the prime mandate, is the benchmark, the touchstone by which a just king, a Muslim king, must pass judgment based on. And then it goes on to say, the holy traditions, moreover, contain the admonition, believe not the talebearer. So Baha'u'lláh is encouraging and inciting that, you're hearing all these rumors. You need to, it is your duty to find out what, whether they're truth or falsehood. You cannot just allow innuendo to become established and gossip. It's against the faith of God. It's against the teachings of Quran. Certain of the divines, Baha'u'lláh continues, who have never seen us, have misconceived the nature of our cause. Those, however, who have met us will testify that this servant has not spoken save in accordance with that which God hath commanded in the book, and that he hath called attention to the following blessed verse, exalted be his word. Do ye not disavow us only because we believe in God and in what he hath sent down unto us and in what he had sent down aforetime? Again, approved from the Quran. In paragraph 45 and 46, Baha'u'lláh supplicates the king to show mercy and compassion towards him and his followers. He then reveals a short yet tender and moving prayer for the king, that perchance he may be guided to do what is right. O King of the age, the eyes of these refugees are turned towards and fixed upon the mercy of the most merciful. No doubt is there whatever that these tribulations will be followed by the outpourings of a supreme mercy, and these dire adversities will be succeeded by an overflowing prosperity. We fain would hope, however, that His Majesty the Shah will himself examine these matters and bring hope to the hearts. That which we have submitted to thy Majesty is indeed for thine highest good, and God verily is a sufficient witness unto me. And he goes on in this prayer, glorified art thou, O Lord my God. I bear witness that the heart of the king is in truth between the fingers of thy might. If it be thy wish, do thou incline it, O my God, in the direction of charity and mercy. Thou verily art the Almighty, the most exalted, the most bountiful. No God is there besides thee, the all-glorious, the one whose help is sought by all. All right, I believe we covered this time. We managed to, and I think we have some time now for some questions. So I am going to invite Dr. Stockman to come back in, and if you have any questions, I'm at your service.
Thanks a lot. That was fantastic, Shahrukh. I've got to get my camera to balance again here. Unfortunately, it's always a problem. Hold on a second. Well, I guess that'll do. While I'm waiting for questions, I don't know if we have any yet, but I do have two for you. The first one was you quoted this letter of Muhammad to the Negus, and have we any idea if it's historical? Well,
you know, it's obviously to the Muslims it's historical because I mean, you know, the asnad that Al-Tabari uses, and you know, Al-Tabari is one of the most respected Muslim historians, you know, and I mean, he uses Ibn Ishaq, Ibn Hisham, all the other early Muslim chroniclers and historians. So to the Muslims, it is. You know, Mr. Balyuzi, in his wonderful monograph on Muhammad and the course of Islam, he says that to Muslims, Muslim historians, they believed, you know, that this was the statement. And here, you know, here we have Baha'u'lláh, you know, confirming that, you know, that this actually did take place, you know, and the Western scholars are a little bit more skeptical, you know, Mr. Balyuzi says, you know, and so, but I would give credence. I mean, first and foremost, because Baha'u'lláh says that he did, and you know, the reference that he makes to Jesus. I mean, these are excerpts from the Surah of Mary, you know, Surah al-Maryam, and you know, it makes perfect sense that it was the case. And you know, there's references also to Muhammad's proclamation to Khosrow Parviz, the Persian king, that and his response to Heraclius, the Roman emperor, as well is the Byzantine emperor. There is references. Al-Tabari makes that. So you know, but the Ethiopian one is quite it's a famous one in Islam. So I believe it is. There's no reason to doubt it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious because I really haven't. I'm not familiar with the Western scholarship about it either, and so I was very interested to know about that, because obviously one of the reasons Baha'u'lláh wrote letters to kings, and including this particular one we're talking about, is because of the precedent of Muhammad having done the same, and it makes sense theologically. If you're going to proclaim new truth, you proclaim it to the leaders, and you give them the choice to accept it. And if they don't accept it, well, you proclaim it to everyone else as well. Sort of a respect for the hierarchy of society, shall we say?
Yes, of course. You know, I mean, they are the leaders of temporal power. They are humanity's leaders. So, you know, Baha'u'llah's choice to proclaim his revelation to these people first and to the rest of the world, because they are really the instrument. They're the example. They're the shepherds of the herd, the flock. So if they embrace it, then masses will will embrace. I mean, look at Emperor Constantine. You know, I mean, you're very familiar with that. I mean, that was the turning point for Christianity. His belief, his becoming baptized and being a Christian, becoming a Christian, changed the course of Christian history. So it is very important, and therefore, unfortunately, we didn't have one, in this revelation, and Muhammad had one, so it's still ironic.
We still will have. I mean, we did have the Maliatoa, of course, and
of course, yes, we've had that since, but not at the time of Baha'u'lláh. No. Those, I mean, the biggest was at the time of Muhammad. I mean, he was a contemporary, but we didn't have a contemporary, and I think this is what led, I believe, very strongly, and now Western historians are correlating this as well, that the origin of the First World War, First and the Second World War, really stemmed from the 1860s, 1870s, the arms race that was created between Prussia, France, England, and so the second half of the 19th century was very instrumental. This is the time of Baha'u'lláh that led eventually to the First World War, the Great War. So, and that, I believe that if the kings and the rulers had embraced Baha'u'llah's teachings and had listened to him to abandon that arms race that was taking place, we wouldn't have had the First World War. Clearly, I believe that to be the truth. So,
and I think you're quite right about that. I mean, Abdu'l-Baha himself talks about the arms race right before World War I, and he wasn't the only one. Even Swami Vivekananda mentions it. I sort of noticed that.
It was very palpable. Abdu'l-Baha said is a tinder box. I think he uses that. He says it's like a pile of matches ready for a spark to engulf it, and it did. I mean, an assassination in Sarajevo just set that, that was the trigger. Yes, that led to it. Yeah.
Well, my other question, that text that you quoted of Baha'u'llah's, which included the passage about how it's better to be killed in the path of God than to kill, I was struck by the fact that the yellow text in English and the yellow text in the original language, presumably the same text, but Baha'u'lláh switched from Persian to Arabic.
Yes.
Why?
Well, it's very interesting. Well, it's a language of eloquence. His laws, Baha'u'llah's, whenever he wants to establish a firm and unequivocal law, not to say that the Persian language is he has done that in the past, but this is, you have to understand, this the whole notion of jihad is an Islamic, and has the Arabic, overtones and Islamic overtones and so on. So for him, he uses the language of eloquence to enunciate this mighty message, this new message. And yes, it is. And back then, the style, all the commandments and all the injunctions were all in Arabic. So here, by highlighting that, he is underscoring the fact that it is a new injunction, that it is better to be killed, than to kill for the good pleasure of God. So yes, I did that to highlight the fact that he is speaking so beautifully in Persian. And this is the part they said to you in the Lawh-i-Sultán, half of the tablet is in Arabic and the other half is in Farsi. It's beautiful, this passage about, in Farsi, and then, this commandment comes in. So yes, for sure.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Jerry, by the way, we have a very good turnout in the course today. With the 7 of the 11 people, I think is the total of that been able to tune in.
That's
I'm
great.
very pleased to see that. Jerry says, when Baha'u'lláh brings in the hidden words, I sense that the warnings were for the clergy who were attacking the believers, but was there any reference to one or more individuals?
It's interesting, and I agree with Jerry. I believe it is for the clergy and for everyone. And no, I think this is a I think it has a dual purpose. It's showing, being one of Baha'u'llah's most prominent work in the Baghdad period. It was we know it was revealed in 1858, according to Abdul Baha. So it was one of the earlier works of Baha'u'lláh after his retirement, coming back from his retirement. So I believe it establishes that Baha'u'lláh had actually been teaching, he had been preaching these principles, and also it is a reminder of his message that continues, that his revelation is deeply entrenched in these principles and these beliefs. So I believe it does have a universal appeal here. Why he's choosing it. And the hidden words are so beautifully composed as well. Just the language of it is so uplifting. So again, he's hoping that their influence will also influence these people. If there's anyone, these are hard nuts to crack, so to speak. And if your nut doesn't get cracked by the hidden words, I don't know what will, in some ways. So really, he's using everything. He's throwing everything at these guys, to try to show them that this is who he is, that they are so wrong about him and his followers. Yes. Any other questions?
Jerry says, thank you. I appreciate the clarifications. Not just yet, but I did want to comment about this, that I'm also really struck by the level of the amount of encouragement and love in the writings. It's not just the prayers. We were reading prayers before our assembly meeting this morning. I read prayers right after we started the fast, and the prayers again and again are filled with things to encourage, to uplift, to inspire. The writings are the same way. I mean, there are times Baha'u'lláh has to admonish people, so he certainly can lash it. His tongue can lash at people too, but that's when people have already done something really, really bad. Meanwhile, he's encouraging people otherwise as much as he can.
Absolutely, it is. This revelation is such it's kind, it's love, it's loving, it admonishes with great deal of compassion and mercy, and so yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are instances, obviously, where there is firmness and there is direct injunctions, but by and large, majority of Baha'u'llah's letters are there to uplift the soul of humanity to their ultimate destiny of drawing close to God. And it is, we're so blessed to have so much that encourages us constantly, that invites us, that holds our hand, that pushes us in the right direction. Absolutely, I agree. Yeah.
Exactly. And we had a web talk last night about Hands of the Cause of God, Hyde and Clara Dunn, and about Hand of the Cause of God, Featherstone, which came in, and the Hands did continuously encouraging, continuously loving people,
Absolutely.
continuously inspiring and uplifting people. And that it's a fascinating theme that really has been really struck home for me in the last few weeks.
For sure.
I don't see any other questions right on hand. And we don't necessarily have to have a large number of questions. You covered the paragraph by paragraph, the whole thing, all the way up to where you wanted to stop. So we'll be able to do part 3 next, unless you suddenly discover a whole bunch of more things you need to say, which always can happen, of course. Because this is
I think
an infinite ocean of a template.
Part 3, and then we're going to look at, there's a very good chance that we may have to do a 4th one. I was just looking at it last night, and it looks like there might be, but we'll see how far, because right now we're almost at halfway point. There are 90 paragraphs, so we just covered 40, 45, 46. So I would say we would be hard pressed to try to cover 45 in just 1 hour. So we'll probably do the 8th and the 15th.
Okay, that's good.
All right.
Well, are we finished? If we're all done, thank you again, Shah, for your fascinating commentary about this tablet, which once we have it, all up and finished, will give people a considerable amount of depth in the study of this very important, weighty, and most lengthy tablet that Baha'u'lláh revealed to any of the kings and rulers. James has also just said thank you as well. So
you're welcome. My pleasure.
I think with that note, we will bid adieu and wish everyone an enjoyable remainder of the weekend.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.